Hello, my name is Kyle, and today I'd like to talk with you about why is it so hard when someone tells us what to do. So this concept, actually I could have talked about this a lot, given examples of feelings that come up when demands are placed on another person. I could give you examples from my own life of what that is like to be told what to do and to kind of like push back or kick back against it. I think each of us want to know how to get our needs met, and I think understanding this concept is very important to do that. If you're interested in hearing more, I'm going to have a full length video as well. So I hope I've piqued your interest. And if you go to the full length video, then you will be watching right now and hopefully get some information that's helpful for you. So, anyway, to get into it, when somebody tells somebody else something to do and they're placing a demand on that person, feelings of frustration might come up, annoyance might come up. I know for me, those are some of the feelings that come up when a demand is placed on me. And there's a good reason for this. And so I'm going to back up and kind of tell you how these concepts kind of came back up for me, and how I've kind of gained a little a new perspective. Not that the information's new, but for me, my perspective was new because I could have told you, like I said, I could have told you that when we tell somebody something to do, it feels different than when that person has a choice. And so that's what we're going to get into. The literature I've been looking at that has helped kind of broaden my understanding on this topic is a program called Nonviolent Communication. It is actually a book. It's written by Dr. Marshal Rosenberg. I would highly suggest that you read that if this piques your interest and you want to know more about what to do when someone's placing a demand on you. I definitely think that will help, but I want to kind of cover this a little more succinctly here. In reading this book, I've been through it several times over the past few weeks. I'm reading it for personal understanding, but I also work with people, and so the information to me has been very valuable in figuring out some of these dynamics, but more importantly, how to explain this to other people. So let's get into it. To explain this a little better, it's helpful to understand some of the basic concepts of nonviolent communication. In nonviolent communication, the goal is really to help people live in such a way that their actions and their words are contributing to life, according to the author. So I do like that concept, and we want to think of how we're interacting with people in a way that contributes to them, their needs, and contributes to us, our needs. So and we want to think of interactions based on whether or not this interaction, whether or not what that person's saying or doing, whether or not what we are saying or doing is serving that purpose or not. And so in that, we're looking at emotions. So the emotions are the feelings that come up. And so there's a very distinct difference between a feeling in nonviolent communication and a thought. In the English language, it's very common for us to say something as a feeling that is actually a thought. So just to give a quick picture of what that looks like, when someone places a demand on me, I feel like they're being mean. And I've actually talked with people and asked them how did you feel when that person asked you to do that or told you to do that, rather? And they said, I feel like they were pushing me around. And I said, so you would tell me that pushing you around would be a feeling? And the person say, yeah, that's right. And so then to come back, I would bring them out an inventory of feelings and say, can you show me on this inventory where that feeling is? And so on that inventory, we're looking at, things like frustrated, angry, happy, elated, sad, disappointed, a whole range of rich vocabulary to talk about emotions. But what we didn't see on there was pushing me around, because pushing me around is actually more of an evaluation of what that person's actions were, or an interpretation of what the person believed that the other person was doing. So it's more of a thought, not a feeling. So being able to recognize that first is helpful. Underneath that feeling, we want to try and help others identify need. So a need might be expressed as a strategy. So I want to distinguish the difference between that. So you have a need, and then you have the strategy to meet the need. So if I'm talking to my 4-year-old, I may say, "What do you need right now?" And he may look at me and say, "I need cake." And so to help him with this difference, I might say, cake would be a nice strategy to meet your need, but I think your need may be food. And the need would be food is if he was feeling hungry and needed food to satisfy his hunger. However, in some cases, somebody may not want cake just because it's food. They may want it because it brings a sense of joy or fun or excitement. And it might meet a need to have something different, or spontaneity. So there's a whole other ways. It might bring, sometimes we talk about food as comfort food. So if that food is meeting a need for comfort, then comfort would be the need, and the cake would be the strategy to meet the need. I hope this is making sense. So we really want to be able to distinguish between the need and the strategy to meet the need. So those are some basic concepts of nonviolent communication. So to get back to the original case at point, not to drag this on too long, but what is happening when somebody is bossing us around, or somebody's making a demand of us, or we are making a demand of ourselves? Have you ever woke up and said, I have to go to work today. I have to pay these bills today. I have to take care of these kids today. I have to do something about my yard. I have to do something about this problem or that problem. So when we talk like that, we're making demands, and we're also making an evaluation. Should, have to, I've got to is really an evaluation that's how things should be. And so when others are making a demand on us, the problem is that when we have a judgment attached to our words, it's really the thing that separates us from our need. So it can isolate us from what our actual need is. And so what happens is we say, I have to go to work, and we miss the need in that, because we think this is is now like a moral obligation. So what I would like you to try, and what Dr. Rosenberg suggests in his book, is that you state, I choose to do this. And so this is that self demand that we're identifying that we choose to, and then I choose to do this because I choose to go to work because I want the paycheck that comes with it. I'm choosing to discipline my children because I want the growth and the learning that comes with what I'm teaching them. And so that doesn't change the situation, but it changes the energy that the person brings to that situation. Now, what happens when somebody tells you what to do? So I'm going to give an example. This is the one I normally give when I'm talking to people or teaching. During COVID, we had to wash our hands. It was highly recommended that you wash your hands, and a lot of us chose to wash our hands because we wanted the health benefits of keeping the virus away from us, the COVID virus. And we wanted to make sure that we were keeping ourselves safe. So that would be the need. We wanted that safety that came with it, among other things. And so every day when I'd get home, my wife, who stayed very cognizant of the safety in our home, would place this demand: go wash your hands. And I remember when I first heard that, I'd say, I know to go wash my hands. You don't tell me like I'm a kid, go wash my hands. It doesn't feel right. And so she said, well, here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned if you walk in and I don't remind you to wash your hands, you're going to go straight to the refrigerator. And I said, would you mind waiting then until I get close to the refrigerator before you demand me to go wash my hands? And sure enough, the next day she waited and she watched, and I went straight for the refrigerator because that's maybe the thing that was meeting my need in the moment. And then okay, wait a second, I wasn't staying cognizant. And then I tried to load my wife up with some strategies to cue me to wash my hands without demanding of me, because I didn't like how it felt. And so I said, would you mind announcing that you're washing your hands? And maybe I'll probably end up racing you once I'm aware of it. And so she did that, and that was helpful for me. So why is it that something so simple that probably and here we go again with the judgment language, shouldn't have taken so seriously, why was that so hard for me? And why is it hard for other people when people make demands, maybe at work, when someone's telling you need to get this done by this, that? Why do we kick against it? When you've got a college assignment and it says it's due by, you need to have this in by, get this here by this time. Why is that level of anxiety that shuts us down? I believe the underlying need, like we were talking about, we have needs and strategies to meet needs, is autonomy. And so if you don't know what autonomy is, think of it like this. Autonomy is your ability to choose. And so when I came home and I was told to go wash my hands, which not that my wife was meaning to kind of treat me that way. That was how I was interpreting it. But when I was told to do that, my autonomy, my need to choose felt threatened. And then I had the emotions that I had. And so when we understand that this is the need, the underlying need, and this works for all needs, not just autonomy, but this was something that really stood out to me this week, because this was a concept that I've explained over and over to people about giving examples about how these feelings come up in some different language to use to address those feelings. I've never talked, or I haven't talked very much about the actual underlying need, which is autonomy, or our need to choose. And so when we make a request from somebody, we are really acknowledging that person's right to choose. When you look at contemporary child discipline programs, if you ever work with hospitals or any behavior technicians with your child, if your child has challenging behaviors, or if you are working through counseling, you might get advice that says, when you are expecting something, you're going to state it in a way that makes it clear that there's not an exception. So instead of saying, would you please, you're gonna say, I need you to, or you need to. And so sometimes that can, with some children, that can result in this kickback, the same kickback I was feeling when I was told to wash my hands. And so so we want to identify for that person that they do have a choice, and we can do that by making a request. Now, when we make a request with someone, we may use the right wording, and here's how we can know for sure that our request is actually a request. When I'm requesting of you, would you be willing to? And this is something in the book that Dr. Rosenberg suggests to state is when you make a request, saying something like, would you be willing to? And then stating the strategy that would help meet your need. It makes it more likely for people to consider and be able to take action on that strategy, because you haven't threatened their need for autonomy or their right to choose. So how you know if you're request is actually a request is because when you say, would you be willing to, and that person says, no, actually, I'm not willing to do that. And you start to feel anger or frustration or start to use judgmental language like, you always do this. You've never considered my needs. I'm always going to be second for you. When you make statements like that, your request actually was not a request. It was a demand. And people can sense that. And when they realize they didn't really have a choice and that there's going to be some kind of punishment or even if there's a reward, if you're offering something additional for fulfilling this request, something you won't get if you don't, then that's a demand. That's something you're expecting that person to do. And that's something that may alienate them from their need to choose, which may hinder future connections with that person. I'm hoping this is making sense. And so what we really want to be aware of is when we make a request and we really want this need to get met, would you be willing to, like the request I made to my wife, would you be willing to cue me instead of telling me what to do? So remind me that you're washing your hands, and that'll remind me I need to wash my hands. Would you be willing to do that? And when she says, no, I'm not really willing to do that, and then to know that it's a request, instead of frustration coming up or judgmental language coming up for the other person, what I would be curious about was, what is the need of the other person as to why they couldn't fulfill that request? So that would be my question. Oh, what I'm hearing is that you are a little concerned about that request, and I'd be interested to know what needs of yours are being threatened by my request. And the goal becomes to understand the other person, not to get the other person to do what we want them to do. We have a culture that supports right and wrong, and we have judgments and values that are constantly at play. And a lot of parent-child interactions are, you need to do this because I'm the parent and you're the child. That's what's right. It's right for you to listen to me. It's wrong if you don't. It's right for you to be nice to your sister. It's wrong if you're not. It's right for you to keep your hands. And I don't want to evaluate that and say that those statements are wrong or right. But what I do want to say is they don't get down to the needs, and they don't communicate what those people or person's needs are in that situation. In most cases, they definitely don't get to the child's needs. And so some of those requests that come across, if they were to come across as true requests, and you say, I'd like you to, and I'd wonder if you'd be willing to sit down and listen while I read a story. When the child says, I will not do that, the curiosity should come up and say, I'm very curious and I'm a little confused. I was really needing your attention right now, and I really wanted to contribute, and I was needing to contribute to your life with this story, and I was wondering what needs of yours that you're thinking about right now, and what is it that you wanted in this interaction, and what needs of yours weren't being met by sitting down and reading a story. And that's where we can get to. And maybe the child may say something like this: I don't mind sitting down for the story, but I've really got to go to the bathroom, And so now we've got maybe some needs for comfort or relief. And that relief would be, some physical needs here that could be communicated really easy. And you've given an opportunity to do that. When we use judgmental language and demands, you might have people shut off, and the child may just sit uncomfortably and fidget and have to find another way around to get their need communicated. I could talk on stories and stories, but I've talked with someone about a student in a classroom, and the student's causing all kinds of behavior. And the issue was there was something embarrassing for that child that they didn't want to share. And I'm not going to share the specifics of what that embarrassment was, but something they didn't want to share. And when they acted up, they got to get out of the classroom. And so it reduced the likelihood that thing that was sensitive to them was going to come out. one thing to keep in mind when if this is resonating with you and it's something that you think you might want to look into further, as I've mentioned, get the book, get through the book. It's got all these concepts, and I think they're probably detailed a lot better than I could do in this video. If you like to listen, there's an audio version as well, so you can get that too. But what I want to talk about too is when we have these evaluations and when we have this language in our head that says we have to, we should, we have to be very aware of how we're thinking about other people. Like I had mentioned before, I work with people with challenging behaviors. And it's very interesting to me how I can go to work and I can be very patient, I can be very understanding, and I can use very needs-based and empathetic language with people. And I can come home and my expectations shift. At work, I'm reminding myself constantly that the other person needs something I have to offer and I'm ready to contribute. At home, my expectation is that I don't want to do the work that I do at work. I don't want to come home and do it. And I'm evaluating the people in my home that they should be able to maybe anticipate some of my needs or not need this level of compassion and time and energy from me. And so what happens is when my needs aren't met, I might feel angry, but it's more about how I'm viewing the person I'm thinking about. So if I'm telling myself that this person's just spoiled or rotten or mean, or if I'm telling myself that I deserve something from this person, I might feel angry when they don't do it because I'm not focused on what my needs are, for one, and what their needs are. Definitely not focused on their needs, especially if I'm evaluating. And we do that culturally a lot. If somebody messes up and their behavior doesn't meet our needs, it's very easy to jump to an evaluation or a judgment of that person, to say this person's wrong. And it actually sometimes feels good to carry on in that conversation with others. Oh yeah, that doesn't meet my needs. That's not something I value when they do that. And we don't talk like that, though. We just say, yeah, that was rotten. That was horrible. Yeah, it's very heinous what they did, or I can't believe they would do that. Why would they do that? And if we really wanted to know, we gotta look at what the needs are behind. And so when we evaluate others, when we use judgment on others, it's a lot easier for us to get angry because we're not getting down to the needs. Now, when we start to understand what our needs are, and we start to identify that, our judgments are kind of isolating us from our needs. And those judgments don't just go outward, they go inward too. Have you ever made a mistake and you say, man, I'm so stupid? That's an evaluation. It doesn't get you down to your needs. So it would be helpful for you to think about that and to think and to maybe reframe that. When I chose to eat that extra cookie, it threatened my need for health or my need to be in control of what I'm doing, or my need to do the thing that I was choosing to do. Maybe it was autonomy. And then you can start thinking of strategies of how you're going to deal with that. Maybe you're going to make sure you fill up on healthy snacks before you get around the other stuff. But the big thing is, without understanding that underlying need, you're not going to come up with something to be able to address that. And really, that language that you may use against yourself or others is not going to help you see what yours or others' needs are. And that's really what we want to get at. So the big thing that I hope was able to help with is one, kind of bringing some more information about nonviolent communication, because it's been very helpful for me, and I feel like it's helpful for others. And I'm really hoping that you understanding that when these demands are placed, that your need to be able to choose might be threatened, and it might be causing some different emotions. So I'm hoping the next time you feel a little upset when you're having a demand placed on you, I hope you can slow down and stop and think about, first, one, how am I feeling? Am I frustrated, disappointed, a little bit down, dejected? How are you feeling? And identify, is this threatening my need for autonomy, not my need to choose? And then what kind of strategies might you employ to help with that choice? And maybe it might be some empathetic language to yourself, and it might be communicating to the person making the demand that, hey, when you tell me that I have to do this, that doesn't sit well with me, because I value my right to choose, and when you say it that way, I don't think I have a choice, and that slows me down to be able to really think about and really be able to attend to what you're needing. But I can tell this is very important for you, and I would like to know what kind of needs you have behind making this request. And I think when you find out that someone else might be a little fearful, and they might be worried about a deadline, or they might be worried about a review coming, then that demand that was made at you at work, or that demand that was made to you, will start to make more sense when you understand the other person's need behind it. Now we're talking a language that helps with connection. We're talking with a language that really helps us get down to some durable strategies for being able to meet people's needs, because we're actually exposing the needs, and we're getting away from the evaluation language. And really, at that point, then you really feel like you do have a choice, because you're able to choose to be aware and choose to communicate your needs in a way that makes it really very likely that someone is going to hear your request and be able to take action on it. So I might do some more videos about how to make requests and the specifics of requests. I think I might do some videos on the whole book, and some of my takes on the book as a whole. I hope this was helpful. I see I'm getting pretty long here, so I hope that the content is useful for you, and we'll see you next time.